The story moves to London, England, where Agent Nathan briefs Director Khan on a high-stakes mission. A critical shipment was stolen 2 nights ago, and it's vital to recover it. When Khan asks what the shipment contained, Nathan confesses he doesn't know. All he's learned is that it's set to be sold on the black market for $10 billion, attracting high-profile terrorists. Nathan is given full authority to assemble a team and do whatever it takes to retrieve the artifact, codenamed the Handle. Nathan's first recruit is Orson, one of the best agents around, although he's been somewhat erratic and unstable in recent years, developing peculiar phobias and living a lavish vacation lifestyle ever since. The next day, Nathan heads to Morocco to meet Orson, reminding him that after spending over $2 million on his vacations, it's time to work for those luxuries. Orson agrees, on the condition that his luxuries remain intact. They fly straight to Madrid to meet the rest of the team, JJ and Sarah. The team jumps into action, tracking down a man carrying a disc with crucial information about the artifact. Sarah instructs Jane to follow the target while the rest prepare for an ambush. However, it's Jane who ends up being ambushed, revealing that the team isn't alone on this mission. Just as they dispatch Jane, the rest of the team is knocked out one by one, and the mission quickly spirals out of control. Orson recognizes the intruder's tactics and warns the team that Mike and John, his former colleagues who switched sides, may be nearby. Orson himself is the next target, but always a step ahead. He swiftly takes down 2 assailants and signals JJ, and together they neutralize the attackers attempting to capture the target. They escape, but not without being pursued. During the chase, Sarah manages to copy the entire disc with Nathan's help. However, the team remains surrounded by Mike's men, who are furious that their target died of a heart attack during the pursuit. The disc is split into 2 parts, one with a specific address and time, while the other is encrypted, defying even Sarah's skills. Nathan decides to impersonate the deceased man to meet the buyer, identified through facial recognition as Ben Harris, a known associate of notorious arms dealer Greg Simons. Given how hard it is to get close to Greg, the only way to see him in person is to secure an invite to one of his parties. To pull this off, they enlist Danny, a famous actor and Greg's fan, coercing him with the threat of releasing compromising footage of him with his sister-in-law, which Sarah obtained from his phone. The plan works better than expected. When Greg learns that Danny will be in France, he sends a party invitation and a $10 million check, clearly a superfan. Once at the party, Danny charms Greg, allowing the team to notice that Greg's assistant manages his phone. Sarah needs to get close to her, but things get tricky when Mike shows up to crash the party. A race ensues between Orson and Mike to get to the phone first, while Sarah attempts to clone it from a few meters away. Just as John, Mike's partner, appears and jeopardizes their cover, Orson fights off one of Mike's seemingly indestructible men upstairs, eventually taking him down. Once the phone cloning is complete, they make a swift exit. Sarah's work shines through as she's planted several microphones in Greg's office. Listening in, the team hears Greg's conversation with Alexander, a Russian mobster in possession of the Handle, asking him to find a buyer for the artifact. Nathan is frustrated, as this is the second time Mike has interfered with their mission. He calls Director Khan to check if there might be a mole in the agency leaking information. The next step in their plan is to infiltrate the Russians' base to install software on their computers, enabling the team to track the artifact's location or the site of its impending sale. Before leaving, Orson steals a few items to make it look like a standard burglary, reducing suspicion around the computer tampering. The following morning, Sarah discovers that Greg is traveling to Turkey to meet a contact named Kasim, who has found a buyer for the artifact. This means Danny has another role to play, and this time, Sarah will accompany him as his girlfriend, given that Greg enjoys stealing his friends' girlfriends. Once Danny casually mentions he's dating Sarah, Greg immediately starts flirting with her, even gifting her a car from his collection. Meanwhile, Orson and JJ tail Kasim, who has just arrived, but things get complicated when they realize Mike is also following him. When Kasim leaves, he leaves behind a newspaper, which Ben picks up. Orson decides to follow Ben instead. After dealing with Ben's bodyguard, he chases Ben through the city's crowded markets, pursuing him on a motorcycle. Ben reaches an elevator, but Orson has to take the stairs to keep his signal jammer active. Otherwise, Danny and Sarah could be in serious danger if Ben's phone gets a signal. When Orson finally reaches the top, Ben surprises him from behind, and in the ensuing struggle, Orson kills him. Thanks to the newspaper, they find the key to decrypt the disc, revealing that the artifact is an AI capable of hacking into any nation's nuclear missile systems. However, it requires an activation code, which Orson now has to retrieve by impersonating Ben. The challenge is that Orson will need to speak to Greg during the deal, so Sarah will monitor the call, and use real-time voice-altering software to mimic Ben's voice. At the meeting point, the team finally sees the buyer, the man willing to pay $10 million for the handle. When Orson makes the call, Sarah's software performs flawlessly, tricking Greg into providing the activation code. Orson now has everything he needs, but the Russians start growing suspicious. Just then, the $10 billion Greg intended for the deal suddenly disappears from his account, raising alarms. With guns aimed at Orson's head, JJ springs into action, triggering a gunfight. Orson seizes the moment, stealing a car with the artifact inside, while the team alerts Sarah to leave the mansion immediately. Predictably, Mike arrives with a helicopter loaded with weapons, eliminating the Russians and dispatching his men to intercept Orson, determined not to let him keep the handle. Danny manages to hotwire a car, and as Sarah heads to the garage, she's confronted by Greg, who makes a pass at her. Fortunately, he doesn't suspect her involvement. By the time security informs Greg of the unfolding chaos, Danny and Sarah have already escaped, kicking off another high-speed pursuit. Meanwhile, Mike dominates the situation, overpowering the Russians and securing the artifact. Just as his helicopter ascends, JJ lands a critical shot, saving Orson. Meanwhile, Danny is forced to apply some movie stunts to real life, as he dodges a hail of bullets while speeding down the road. As the high-speed chase intensifies, Sarah shows her skills go beyond computers, while Danny gets ready to do his part to get them out alive. Fortunately, Orson arrives in a helicopter, launching a couple of missiles to clear their path. Once the team is safe, Nathan informs them that Mike has defected from the rival agency and plans to use the artifact to his advantage. With limited options, Orson returns to confront Greg. Sarah reveals to Greg that she stole all his clients and secrets from his server. Cornered, Greg agrees to cooperate, revealing Mike's plan for the artifact. He explains that Trent and Arnold, who were at the boat party but kept a low profile, control 90% of the world's gold supply. Their goal is to reprogram the AI within the handle to create a global power grid failure, plunging the world into a new dark age where gold becomes the only currency, and they become the world's de facto rulers. That night, Orson and the team swing into action, while Greg and Danny serve as bait. Greg's presence as a globally infamous criminal puts Danny's acting to the test. Greg quickly reminds Trent and Arnold that he hasn't received his $1 billion commission for the deal. With arrogance, they dismiss his demands, stating Mike completed the job, so the commission is his. Greg coolly counters, stating he traveled far for his money, and just before escalating, he requests a brief moment for a demonstration. Suddenly, missiles rain down, destroying their communication towers. Calmly, Greg instructs Danny to distribute documents listing the names and locations of all their families, including Mike's. Before leaving, Greg warns them that each person on that list will be hit with a missile in 90 seconds unless he receives a transfer. As the villains panic, Orson infiltrates the compound, eliminating nearly all the guards while Trent, Arnold, and Mike are distracted by Greg's ultimatum. Once Greg exits, the villain's arrogance fades, replaced by sheer terror. When Mike realizes he's about to lose his commission, his alliance with Trent and Arnold crumbles, and a confrontation brews. In a surprising twist, Mike calms down and lets them make the transfer, but unbeknownst to them, he's cloning their passwords in real time. Once his tech expert confirms control over their accounts, Mike orders their execution. By the time Orson reaches the top floor, everyone is dead except for Mike, who attempts a surprise attack. After a swift, decisive blow, Orson secures the artifact, once again saving the world. JJ and Sarah arrive just in time to extract Orson before reinforcements arrive. The next day, Orson delivers the artifact to Nathan, who informs the team that Greg vanished with the $1 billion. However, he also shares that Danny is safe, and in fact, shooting a movie with Greg as the director. The team plans to visit the set with some of the money they earned from the jewels they swiped from the Russians. The movie closes with Danny mimicking Greg's iconic performance for his next role, with Greg himself directing.